cheers to episode 14.
Episode 14, Carly Smith. Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Episode 14.
Thank you so much for being my guest.
Yes, happy to be here.
I'm happy for you to be here. We were going to talk about expectations tonight.
I feel honored to be here.
You shouldn't be honored. You're a very interesting person.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of know a lot about podcasts, and I don't. So,
I enjoy some podcasts.
Well, I've been getting your feedback.
Yeah.
And you've given me a lot of positive feedback. I need some criticism. You've given me a little bit. I don't think it's as good. You've given me great feedback. And anyways, we're not going to talk about it
I put it
here.
in a gentle way.
Yeah, but I like it just beyond.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyways, I appreciate all of it. I appreciate all the feedback. And trust me, I hear it from everybody. And it's mostly good, but we don't talk about it here. But that was another reason I wanted to have you on, because just the format that I was thinking about, I was thinking, hey, this would be good, especially because you had an idea that you wanted to talk about, because that's the whole point of this show. Okay, this is why I was excited. The show was intended to discuss ideas.
Right.
Like expectations. And to me, that is an idea.
It's a random thought. It's a random thought that came to me.
About it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I texted you, hey, expectations.
That's the topic.
That's the topic.
Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry, 7 times this has happened.
All right, y'all. We're going to talk about some expectations.
We are not starting over anymore.
Episode 14.
So, you, why expectations? Actually, first of all, we'll start off with who you are. Okay. You are Carly Smith.
Yes.
You are a mother-to-be.
Yes.
We'll talk about that for 1 second.
Right.
You've been trying for a while, and it's finally happened.
It's finally happened.
Maybe the expectations of wanting one and just thinking, I deserve this, is maybe what made it take a little longer.
There's so much there that I can unpack.
Yeah.
So much.
I think that'd make a whole podcast that we didn't even think about.
Yeah.
But when you want something so bad, it makes it so much harder to gain.
So you
when
listeners,
you accept it,
if you want me to expand on this,
we'll do
just write in, comment.
Yeah.
Like, share, all the things.
See, those are the things I don't think about. Those are the things I don't think about. It's not a very traditional podcast. But so why expectations? What brought that up? Why did you think about that?
Well, I've been thinking about this because all of my life, I really have had an expectation on life, marriage. G and I have a great story. G is Garrett Smith,
Garrett Smith,
he was
the legend,
on the podcast a couple of episodes ago. But, even with him and I, whenever we first started dating, which we have a great story, I had an expectation there. Or, we often have expectations on work or how our life should look like, or people place expectations on us, and we are just as guilty. We do that to others as well. But here recently, just like what you were saying, G and I are expecting our first child, and for the first time, I have no expectations on how we are going to parent, like what that looks like. And I think it's really cool because it's almost like I'm taking a step back and just letting things unfold. And G and I are just going to watch and learn and do what is best for us, because everybody has a different situation. Everybody has a different scenario, livelihood. And so there's really no right or wrong answer. And I think sometimes, in my profession, or in my head, I think that there is a right and wrong. There's a box. And if you color outside of the lines, then, you're looked at, different or something of that sort. And so this is just a really great, refreshing season for me to embrace on, because there's not an expectation. I'm not thinking, oh, this is how we're going to parent once baby boy is here. It's just, okay, let's see how this works out and take it from there. And Garrett and I, luckily we both communicate with each other very well and are very understanding with each other. And I am someone that, I like to play by the rules, but I also like to put my own different spin on it, where Garrett is like totally outside of the lines. He is Like, he's just, there's no rules. And that's one thing that I enjoy and love about him. And so it gets me out of, my own comfort zone. But, also with people, I've experienced some people very close to me that has placed some unexpected expectations on me. And going back to this painting that you have with guilt and resentment, it does cause that, because if you're not aware of what that person is expecting of you, you're causing resentment and guilt and anger and frustration with that person, and it just builds and builds and builds until you finally discuss it. So that's kind of where that has stemmed from, but I'm just truly embracing like this season of not having any expectations on what is to come.
I love it. That's a lot to unpack. And I don't know if I should work backwards, because that's what I'm going to remember the most. And we can talk about the painting since it was fresh. The painting is, for those of you who can't see this, it's a skull with a scale coming out of the top of its head. And my artist, my bartender, my friend, matter of fact, your husband sketched a lot of this out. And then it transferred over to Mo.
Yeah.
And she came up with this, but it's a scale that's the balance. So the idea is that guilt. Mm-hmm. Someone will guilt you into something, especially if they expect something from you. If someone is conditioned to expect something, to have an expectation, if they don't get what they want, they'll attempt to guilt you into it first. Mm-hmm. And they may get their way. A lot of times they get their way, but there's a side effect. There's an equal and opposing force. I think everything has to be balanced. Mm-hmm. So the balance to guilt would be resentment. I may have conditioned you, and that's where I kind of went with this whole expectations things. I use something called first principles. It's how you break things down to its simplest form. There's no more whys. Once you get to the end, this is the root of the problem or idea, whatever. So I thought about it a lot, and if people expect something, it's because if people expect something from me, it's because I conditioned them for it, or at least in my circle. Mm-hmm. Now, if the world expects something from me, it's pretty easy to deal with. I don't let them, have a play. We'll get into this whole thing. Yeah. I'll tell you where it comes from. But so the side effect to guilt is resentment. I will resent you equally. Every time you guilt me into something, I'm going to resent you for it. I may keep it to myself, but what it does, it puts a wedge between us.
Yeah.
A little more. And in 10 years, you're like, why the hell am I not attracted to this person or want to be around this person? Or you forget what you wonder why you don't even, like, where did Joe go? Well, maybe maybe you guilted them. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the problem with expectations.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that expectations are resentment in the making, or expectations are disappointment in the making?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can
see that,
a couple days on this idea of expectations, and I could not find one logical reason, one benefit to an expectation. Mm-hmm. I think you can have hopes and dreams, but the definition of expectations, I couldn't see any positive from it.
Yeah.
So I wrote a bunch about it. Like once I got on a roll, I just started writing, and the whole thing kind of goes back to childhood is where I kind of took it back to.
Yeah. And we are talking about unhealthy expectations. I mean, it's good back to what you were saying.
Talk about a healthy one.
Yeah.
Give me a healthy expectation.
Well, I mean, just having hopes, drivers, dreams, things of that nature. But it's really cool to open up your mind to allow a little bit of room for freedom in what that, job, relationship, whatever that looks like, so you can learn and grow from that. So I think, where I am now, it's just good to, just take a step back and watch things kind of unfold and just take it from there, instead of thinking, okay, this is how we are going to parent our child, or this is how, my work day is going to be, or, XYZ. But it's good to have, healthy expectations and goals and drivers, because if we didn't have that, we would just be sitting on the couch eating some Cheetos.
So I'd like to break that down. I would like to go a little further. As for me, there's a huge difference, a fundamental difference between a hope and a dream and an expectation. I could not think of one way that an expectation did not end in disappointment.
Yeah.
Hopes and dreams are just one of those things. You're not disappointed when it just doesn't quite work out the way you had hoped for.
Oh,
but
yes.
if I expect something and I don't get it, I'm not able to guilt someone into it. I tend to have resentment. I tend to it holds me back in life.
Mm-hmm.
Being affected by an expectation will hold you back in life, and it just slows down your momentum. And I think I've kind of dedicated, like, okay, so you was talking about things aren't truth, and what were we talking about earlier? We were basically talking about black and white. Things are not so black and white anymore. Things are not always just in a box. So the more I learn about first principles, the more I realize there is no black and white. It's gray. There is no box.
And there's no rules.
There is no rules. There's fundamental...
You just do what's best for you.
Do what's best for society first, right? Be selfish, but that will also set you up for success too, right? If that makes any sense. If you make choices that are best for others... Now, that's what I'm talking about is blurry. It's really, really hard to see. So here's the story,
which I know your listeners have a little bit of backstory from this... from G's episode. But, Garrett and
G is Garrett, by the way.
G, Garrett. Mm-hmm. Same old G.
Yeah. He's the OG.
So, him and I started dating our second year of college, and we met each other at Malo State in Lynchburg. And then after we graduated from there, we went our separate ways. I mean, we didn't go our separate ways, but we did. He moved to Cookeville to attend Tennessee Tech, and I came to MTSU. And so, we dated throughout our whole college career. And then, once we graduated, this was a time, and we're in the South, all the girls, I was probably 24, 25, are having that expectation, that mindset of marriage. Mm-hmm. That's the next step.
Well, it's what you've been conditioned.
Yeah.
That's what I talk about. Expectations come from being conditioned.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to go
further.
So
that was my expectation. We would talk about it, but really him nor I was really at that point. And so... after that time, we decided to go our separate ways, and we did. We dated other people and, just took a step back. But we were always in touch with each other. I would always send his grandparents a Christmas card.
just a little connection.
I just need a little connection.
Carly sent us that just so he's thinking about you. That's an old school tactic, huh?
Yeah, and yeah.
So guys out there, if your grandma's still getting a card,
right?
There's a reason.
So, but then we reconnected 4 years later, and
that's a big break.
Yeah, it was. But it was so good for us both because, G has always been a gentleman, and I went through a time where, I went from a point where I was ready to get married, ready for that next step. But I wanted it to be with G. However, it didn't happen. And so I went the total opposite way.
Can we go into why it didn't happen? Whose choice?
It was pretty mutual, but it was more so me.
Oh, your choice hold on. Was it your choice because Garrett didn't want to get married? Because Garrett and I have not discussed this.
I didn't give him.
He would have never. He would have never blamed you. He is. God, he is such a sweetheart. But I'm just being honest, And
I didn't give him an ultimatum or anything like that.
You were at that age, you said.
Yeah.
Where girls expect.
Yeah.
Life to move on.
And all my girlfriends were going through this motion.
And so you wanted it too. And it's completely natural. Nothing wrong with it. I have nothing negative to say about this. But was Garrett ready for the same thing?
No.
So you. Well, I love that you both respected yourself enough, right?
Yeah.
So he respected himself enough. So this all goes back to self-respect. And with everything we've talked about tonight, I can take us all the way back to self-respect. And it's a really cool thing. But he respected himself enough to not give in. And if he had gave in, he would have resented you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Had you have given in,
True.
to his expectations, you would have resented him. And it
Yeah.
may be the reason why your relationship is so special today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you both had an extreme
Yeah.
high self-worth,
Yeah.
right? So go continue on.
Yeah. So we reconnected,
4
and
years later.
yeah, 4 years later, it was right around this time. And I mean, as soon as we reconnected, we just knew. And, you know, I really do think that just looking back at that story, and then also just throughout our marriage and where we are today with our baby, just like how the Lord has really shown presence and working in and out of our lives and directed us. And so I say that going back to us reconnecting, it was just instant. We knew that we were going to get married, and this felt right, and we both needed that. Ladies, chivalry is not dead. So
It's not dead.
it is not
Trust
dead.
me, I see it
Keep
every
the
day.
hope.
Yeah.
And you know, that's one thing that I took for granted earlier in our relationship. And, you know, then we reconnected, and I was like, yes, I really missed, you know, these doors being opened, or, you know, just being like, I don't know, that flowers, candies. I'm like typical girl. Flowers, candy, balloons, things
But-
like that.
So chivalry's not dead.
Yeah.
But I want to say the only reason it still is alive for you guys. Okay, so there's a balance.
Yeah.
Life is about balance. That
Yeah.
painting is about balance.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other. So you can't have a sustainable chivalry from Garrett's part without him having enough self-respect to say, you don't deserve for me to open the door tonight.
Right.
You were rude to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
about standing up for yourself,
Yeah.
guys. And women, you know what I mean? It's like it's balance. You know,
Yeah.
don't stop expecting. If a man doesn't want to open the door from you, you probably don't deserve it.
Yeah.
All right? And
Right.
if she doesn't want to do something nice for you, you don't deserve it. Anyways, I hate
Yeah.
to jump in there, but these are key things that are very
Yeah.
important to me.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we are individuals who have our own lives going on. We're both in medical sales. We both have, you know, different projects that we work on. But when we come together as a couple, it just magnifies that so much more. And then we also, you know, Christ is in our relationship as well. And so that, you know, really makes us stronger. And obviously, you know, throughout our journey and where we are today, it truly has just made us stronger. So, and really, I don't have an expectation for him. I don't go home and think, oh my goodness, he has to be here at 6:00 with dinner,
That's an expectation.
or I'm going to be irritated.
Well, hold on. That's real good. That's really, really good, because what you're saying is the reason why you guys are so successful. You don't expect him to be home. You would like for it.
Yeah.
Right? And then Garrett, I've been with him so many times. Guys, I gotta go. But we're having so much fun. No,
Right.
my wife's gonna be home. Like, he's figured out. He just knows how to
It
balance.
has
He
to
has
balance.
all the fun in the world, right? Without
Yeah.
any of the drama.
Right. I know. He wants drama.
Nobody.
I know.
Well, actually, I take that back. People live for it because they don't feel anything. They'd rather feel negative emotion than nothing at
Yeah.
all. So
Or maybe they get a high from it.
they do. Yeah, because feeling something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
But this is all really good stuff. So, what I'm always trying to do is dissect why. Mm-hmm. Right. And we don't have to go into that tonight. We can save it for another night.
Yes.
So, now that you know my
A part
intentions of
two.
this, well, there's a reason why. And you can give all the credit to Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever you want to. But don't shortchange yourselves. You know what I mean? I'm not a religious person, but I'm becoming more and more spiritual. I'm becoming more and more, I believe more and more in a higher power than everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say I'm not a religious person, I
Yeah.
really have a hard time identifying with man's opinions and
Yeah.
translations. I struggle with it because
Yeah.
people tend to manipulate things to benefit themselves. So since I was a
True.
kid, none of it made sense to me.
True.
But I was thinking about you guys having this expectation. Well, I say you guys. I'm speaking for Garrett here. Well, you're here. I'll speak for you.
Yes.
Well, I'm speak since you're in my presence. I'll attempt to speak for you. But you had an expectation that it was time to have a child, right?
Yes.
And you're ready for it.
Yeah.
But maybe you weren't. Maybe that delay, right? Maybe that delay humbled you to a point that now you're prepared to be the best mom. Like maybe you wouldn't have been as successful as you may be. Because the universe had other plans, and we can call the universe God. And if I had an opinion of God, God is everything. So when I say the universe, and everybody refers to the universe, but the universe had a different plan for you. And maybe it wanted to teach you patience, the value of patience.
So much to unpack here, but I'm going to keep it short. Well, going back to what you were saying about...
Let me stretch that a little bit closer. Just, you can pull it right to you. There you go.
Okay.
Don't take the whole table.
Hello.
Go ahead. Going back to what I was saying. What was I saying?
Yeah. So,
Patience.
some of the listeners may know this, some may not, but we started our journey with trying to have a family 3 years ago, and of that 3, 2 of those were spent at a fertility clinic, and so. And then magically we got pregnant. And so
how many people, like, it was a tough situation. You know, Garrett, we confided in each other a lot. We became friends through business, but then it's based on friendship. It really, it became friendship. And, you know, I don't know that he's told me everything, but I knew enough to feel, you know, you got to vent a little bit. And he never complained. I was just mesmerized by his patience. It blew me away because I don't know you like I know Garrett. You're not my friend like Garrett is my friend, but I recognize that you are something special as well. And, y'all went through some stuff. And then all the time I was thinking, I bet everybody's telling them, if you're just patient, it'll happen. And maybe they were right. But it didn't matter if they were right. It's hard people aren't very good at delivering. This delivery's tough.
It is. Well, and I do understand that everybody's journey is different, and some women have a longer journey than what we went through. We both learned so much as a couple, but, you know, speaking from myself, just what I have learned, oh my goodness, I feel like I could just write a book or put out a PowerPoint presentation about it.
If you had to narrow it down to just a summary, what was the secret? Now, you can leave it up to God, and I don't want to leave it up to God. I don't want to shortchange. Like, there's a lot of, like, God's not the one that made it happen. You know, he made it possible, but it's up to you.
Yeah.
Right? So if you could summarize it, and I don't know if you want to summarize it. You may want to go into great detail, but for listeners, what's the secret? I think we know, but
well, a couple of things, and again, you know, listeners, if y'all want to know more, just
another podcast.
Yeah. Just tell us. But I had a ton of support from my friends, my girlfriends, my family. And at first, I really couldn't talk about it because I'm someone that has to wrap their mind around what's going on and have some sort of basis and of an understanding before I speak about it to somebody. And for a while, I just kept it to myself because it was hard to process.
Well, I think it's also a very psychologically, it's a psychological thing. It's almost I'm inadequate and something wrong with me. So
right,
I think
you start to look inward.
Yeah. Like, why am I not worthy? Right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with my biology?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it's terrifying to even talk about.
Yeah.
As a female.
And it's there's
hell, males think it too. Males think it too. Is it me? You know what I mean? We all worry about what's wrong with us.
Right.
So it's probably
just
hard
a sensitive topic,
Yeah.
and just like what you're saying, many people don't know what to say or how to approach it, and but you know, a couple of things that I have learned from this process is I truly believe in the Lord's timing. And I know people say that all the time. And believe me, when people would say that to me, oh my goodness, Carly, like it's just not your timing right now. Just wait, like the Lord's gonna give it to you. And I would just roll my eyes and just be like, whatever, you don't understand. There was lots of moments about that, but just like looking back on, this past year, not only for us, but for everybody, how this last year has shooken up with, the pandemic, jobs, everything. I do see why the Lord has like really laid out our journey the way that he has. But also here recently, I started thinking about this. You brought up science before. So I became really dependent on the science. I've always had a great relationship with the Lord. I got to a point where I thought, okay, science is going to make this happen. Mm-hmm. Instead
because
of...
You wasn't waiting on God's timing, was
right.
you?
No, sister was not.
I was going to say, now that you're pregnant, I was going to say, hold on. Now you believe in God's timing, right?
Right. I started, like my mindset started to shift, and no, it's not the right combination of drugs that I'm taking, or
well, can we go back?
Whatever that may be. And so I started heavily relying on the science, and then I stopped hearing from the Lord. Like I stopped, like in my heart, I didn't know when this chapter of our lives would happen. And then boom, we found out we were pregnant.
Okay, now I want you to tell me how you found out. So 2 years of I said fraternity. Fertility clinics. 2 years.
We're going to a
huge
fraternity.
Investments of time, financial resources. I mean, you guys really invested.
Yeah.
Because you wanted it now.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I want it now. And that's the culture that we live in today.
But
we want everything now.
You had been essentially playing God by taking birth control, right? I'm assuming birth control, right?
Well,
it's a very natural thing. So that's not natural. So how long does that affect the body before it gets back to regulating
that's a good
balance?
question.
So I'm thinking it could take a long time.
Yeah.
For your body to be like, okay, things are starting to make sense now.
Yeah.
Let's pop one out.
Well, and that's a good question too, because fertility let me back up. Fertility treatments can be controversial to some, because some people do think of it as you are playing God.
I wasn't even thinking about that side. I was thinking about birth control, trying not to have a baby.
I think everybody is just different. And that's something else I've learned. Like every woman is different. Luckily, I've had some really great women in my life who have been through fertility treatments and who I would go to for advice, or, say, this is, tell me your story. What has happened to you? And they would share, but at the same time, I had to take into consideration that is their journey. That is not what my journey is going to look like. And I need to be okay with that. I forget your question.
Well,
again.
no, look, so to back up.
Yeah.
When I was saying, so we were all this applies to God's timing. Mm-hmm. But we're impatient creatures, right? We have expectations. This is all about expectations,
right.
folks.
Goes back to that expectation.
So I want it now.
Yes. Okay.
I want it now.
This reminds me of Charlie and the Chocolate
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Beluga, what was her name? She turned blue or some shit. So I want it now.
That's one of my favorite movies, by the way.
It's what everybody wants. And it's not good. That's why I can't see one
it adds stress,
identifiable
pressure.
quality to expectations. I'm not talking about hopes and dreams. So I was going back. We were talking about the Lord's time, because you used those words. And I went back to... so you went to a fraternity fertility. Say it for me one time. Fertility.
Yeah,
fertility clinic for 2 years, because you want it now.
Yeah, I want it now. Veruca Salt.
Veruca, there.
Veruca.
How did you remember the last name? So, anyways,
I watched the movie.
There's a Snosberry chick. Is this Snosberries? I like Snosberries. Is that the same chick?
I think so.
I don't know. No, she was the chubby girl with the big dad. Anyways, okay, la.
Yeah.
I think she fell in the chocolate, didn't she? I don't remember. Didn't
It's
you
one
get
of my
sucked
favorite
up in the thing?
movies.
So what I'm saying is that you want it now. So you're going to use science, right? But you use science. I wasn't talking about playing God using. I could care less. We have science. Let's use it, right? Let's use it. It's a benefit. If you're insane if you don't think we use science for all kinds of stuff. But I was actually referring to, and I don't know, maybe you heard me, but I was referring to, what is it? Where you take a pill? What is it called? Where girls take pills for
Birth control.
Birth control. So that's playing God essentially, right? Trying to stop the process. So that's what I was saying. Years of taking birth control.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning what kind of an effect it has on the body once you stop taking it. Did that make sense to you when I brought it up earlier? That was playing God that I was talking about, and I could care less about playing God. I'm not going to hold anybody against that.
That goes. I mean. That also is controversial as well.
Well,
There's
I
so
didn't
many
even think
thoughts.
about it controversially. I'm saying after taking it for so many years, now I want a baby.
Yeah.
And it ain't happening fast enough. Now I'm going to a fraternity clinic. Fraternity? Damn it. Why do I keep calling it that? Fertility clinic.
We're going to the fertility
honestly,
clinic, y'all.
Looking back, because so now that we're on the same page, and because I didn't want to be offensive in any way, because I could care less. I would never suggest you shouldn't.
And I'm able
pretend you shouldn't. What was I saying? Play like whatever I was saying about playing God, whatever I was trying to say. I don't care as long as you're not doing anything that's morally wrong.
Right.
So to bring us up to speed, you'd been trying for 2 years and you decided another cycle.
Yeah.
But before you could start that cycle, what did you have to do?
Right. So, because you asked me.
Yeah.
You asked me how we found out. So before we went into this last cycle, my doctor said, hey, go ahead and take a pregnancy test just in case. And, for those women listeners out there and maybe men, mentally, you're like, you go ahead and go into that mindset of, okay, I've got to go ahead and take this pregnancy test.
Zero
and
expectations.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. Because I thought, okay, I'm not going to let this test ruin my day or ruin this moment. And I didn't even tell G. I was like, I'm not even going to share these thoughts with him. I'm just going to take it so I can please the doctor's office, let them know what's going on, yada, yada. So I took it and waited, and then it said positive, and I was just totally shocked. I was totally shocked.
You got a dud.
I was like, what?
How can it be?
What?
Is this cruel? Did you think it was just like a
well,
mistake?
And right then I thought, wow, this is so easy. I'm like, this is
you
so
actually
easy.
believed it was positive. See,
I thought it was. I mean, it said positive, and I believed it. And
really? I would have been like, give me 6 more.
So, that's what I did because I just had one. Mm-hmm. And so I ran to Walgreens, of course. And, okay, so it said positive, and then I just, quickly said, G. And he's like, ironing his shirt, getting ready for work. And he's like, yeah. And I said, we're pregnant. And he just immediately, same thing, just shocked. And so I ran down to the store to grab another one and took it, all positive, and we were just stunned. And, after that, we did tell our close family and friends, such as you and Rebecca, just so y'all could be praying for us and everything. And, so we had a couple of more visits at the fertility office, and then a special day was when they were able to release us, and I was able to, go see my regular doctor at that time. So it's just been such an amazing journey, and everyone has just given us such love. Every week it's just somebody either reaching out and saying that they're praying for us, or we have a gift in the mail. That's my love language, BTW gifts. So do you know
is there a shower or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When is it?
Well, we have a couple coming up.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it.
But they're not
Yeah, we'll talk about it on there. Well, look, I know I've already said congratulations, but congratulations again. Patience is a virtue, right?
Yeah.
I think your level of patience is an indication of how much self-respect you have.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I don't want to impact that right now, but I'll come back and revisit that. Everything I talk about goes back to that principle that I have. I would call it first principles. I'm just really happy for you guys. You know, you went through a lot. Would you take any of it back?
You know, I have thought about this before.
Didn't it make this just so much fucking sweet?
Right?
Didn't
I know, it does. I mean, just like the time, all of the cycles we went through, the money, the heartbreak, mentally, physically challenged. I thought about that, and I would not, because I know I'm so much stronger now, and you know, it's just really pruned me for what's to come. I mean, we're all a work in progress, and so I'm just saying that, you know, I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I'm perfect or anything like that, but it's definitely pruned me to where we're going and how to handle this. So we're just super excited and just extremely grateful.
I want to dedicate a podcast or two to what your plan is. I don't know. Okay, so there is no plan because nobody knows what they're doing when it comes to raising kids.
Right.
It's an experiment. That's all it is.
Yes.
And it should be looked at as if my wife kind of stopped me. Don't tell people they're experiments. I was like, well, they are. But the difference is that I'm trying to expose what's not working rather than just, you know, applying what my parents applied on me, right? I'm trying to apply what worked and then...
Yeah, absolutely.
Trial and error. It's a lot of trial and error, and it's important to go back to the kid and say, okay, for instance, can I give you a... What was it the other day? Maybe I can give you an example of how I parent or how I'm learning to parent, which is being very open with my kids.
Dakota has already shared an example
Has he?
on the
With you?
podcast.
How?
Well,
we have a lot. We had one just the other day.
Just on the podcast, and I believe you and G discussed it as well.
Well, there's so many.
There's two that automatically come to mind.
These are ideas, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in fundamental truths anymore. We're evolving.
Yes.
Right? We're a species
that's something else. Never, like, before I said, I would always say definite words like I will never, or I will always. And I've just really learned that we are always evolving. And
life is, everything is.
How fun is that?
Well, that's binary. That's thinking binary, on or off. And that's not the reality. The reality is what I would call analog. To what degree? To what extreme? Minor, major, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reality. You exist somewhere on a spectrum. Every truth does. Truth is the most complicated thing I've ever even thought of. Like, I mean, it sounds simple, but it's really complex. So to think that raising a child is simple, it is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Because when emotions are involved, when emotions get involved, it complicates the hell out of things. Because we don't have control over how we feel.
Yeah.
We only have control over how we react to that feeling. And I think that's a core element to being a parent. And I would love to go into how expectations could potentially be what I think a fundamental flaw in society today. I think if we went back and really tried to unpack it, you could identify where the hunger for power and financial resources and control and wanting to go into politics. What I'm saying is all these insecurities could potentially be from. So I think the secret to changing the world.
Here you go, guys. What's the secret?
Well, I don't know. I think it's this. Don't try to change anyone else.
Yeah.
Focus on you and only you. Be the best version of you can possibly be and affect as many people by inspiring them. Quit telling them how to live their life. Live yours to the best of your ability, and that will attract people.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
the secret. But then after that, the next secret is, I think the biggest problem is parents of all shapes and sizes. It's never too late to change your parenting skills. As a matter of fact, I'm constantly changing. I said parenting skills. I meant parenting styles. Golly, not being afraid to say, hey, I messed up. I should have not punished you for that. That's not something that parents do. They say, why did you make me do that?
I'm already getting some parenting advice.
And I don't want to do that. I want to talk about it as an idea, not what I believe. Yeah. I don't believe in very much anymore. I'm considering ideas, and I'm experimenting with those ideas and seeing what the results are. And the results seem to be really working. I mean, and so when I talk about expectations with children, I don't know if we want to go into it. What time is it? I don't even know how much time we have.
It's 5:23.
What time did we start?
Well, the first time or the second time?
Everything's still rolling.
That's good.
We still got time. We can go to 6,
okay.
right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Do you want to go into this, or am I forcing us into this?
What's the question again?
I don't know if it is a question. We were talking about expectations and how it applies. So I spent a little time the other day, and expectations for me went all the way back to me as a parent, and where do okay. So can we talk about this? How about this? Can we talk about a negative side effect to expectations? Yeah. And what they lead to?
Yes.
Like what is the emotional response that you can hypothetically consider when something doesn't go your way? Something doesn't go the way you were expecting.
Disappointing.
Disappointing, yeah.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Right? We all hate to be disappointed.
So I wrote a few things down the other day.
Tell me. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I said expectations. I think expectations are dependencies. I think expectations are dependencies that were, let's say they started by parents, right? I realize my kids don't expect anything anymore. They used to, but it's something we've had to kind of navigate and figure out, why do they expect things? Well, they were conditioned to expect it. They were conditioned to expect it by... I was listening to someone the other day with some brilliant people. These people are trying to solve the world's problems. I mean, these are very government and politics, and then they started talking about the failures of their raising children, and how the lack of appreciation their children have. Oh, they're good kids, but they don't appreciate anything, and it broke my heart. I thought, here's the people that's trying to understand politics, and then can't. They're struggling to have a happy child. And I would say this, how successful you are as an individual should not be measured by your wealth, by how many employees you have, by, honestly, how many people you've influenced.
Yeah. If
you have children, I think you can look at a person's children and determine their level of success by measuring how happy a child is. And I'm not talking about happy as ecstatic, right? I was thinking about my kids the other day, and it was really bothering me that my kids, not all of them, Dakota's very ambitious. And where does ambition come from? Desire. Desire comes from want. Need.
Well, both
we talked
you
about this
and
last night.
Rebecca are both ambitious. Y'all both have different, y'all are both so talented. You both have different avenues.
Well, it's only because we have a big goal. The ambition comes from this insane goal of freedom. Not financial resources. Rollo Tomasi said, we'll talk about power. What is power? He was saying power is not financial resources or influence over others. Power is the degree to which you can control your own life. And I believe that with my whole heart. That's like being the best version of you. It's what I was talking about. But I was thinking about Landon and Brennan, the two younger ones. Their ambition is really low. It's just like, I was like, why don't they want for anything? The tree don't have a light on it. Our Christmas tree, it's a week before Christmas, and they're like, do we really need to put the light on it?
The Christmas tree does not have any lights.
And I was like, Rebecca, what's wrong with Landon and Brennan? I'm really stressed about this a lot. I've stressed about it for a while now. Because if Brennan wants to do something, he'll do it. He'll ride wheelies and backflips and just crazy stuff once he has desire. And I was trying to understand where his desire went. Why doesn't he have desire? Because desire is where it manifests ambition. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, my kids aren't happy in the way you would think. They are content. And I think maybe that's a good place to be. Content means I don't really want for anything. Once that happens organically and naturally. You ask them what they want for Christmas. I don't know. I'm happy. Like they don't. Why do we want for things? A lot of times it's because of convenience or to compete, to be accepted, to show off. And they don't have that. They don't have that. And I think it may be because of the fundamental things we applied early, which was no expectations ever. They're just going to set you up for disappointment. And the moment I sensed, because when your kids start to expect it, it's a sensation, right? And whether or not you give into that sensation of guilt, right, is an indication of how much self-respect you have for yourself. Because I've realized giving someone something that they did not deserve is not healthy at all. Earning it is the most, what you should give your kids is opportunity. Constant opportunity to where they can earn what they want. And so Rebecca was talking about the other day, because I started feeling better. I thought, okay, no, my kids are really happy. They're just content. They have highs and they have lows, but for the most part, it's just contentment. I said, well, what do you want, Landon, today? Literally today. Are you okay? Are you happy? I love my life, Dad. I just wish we'd go do more things. I'm like, you're right. That's fair. Let's make that happen. That's the best
experiences.
Yes, and that's all they want.
Yeah.
But man, let me tell you, they don't expect anything out of life. And that's why when you talk to me about expectations, I thought, I think we're figuring that out. In our family, I've been experimenting on them, and they don't expect anything. They're never disappointed. Really, I mean, Brennan knows if he gets too excited about something, that it's devastating, you know. And anyways, what I'm trying to say is that it's something we can revisit later on, but man, it's something we really got to work on, is managing expectations from our children. We sense it. The moment they expect something, they roll their eyes. If they don't get it, they roll their eyes. And that is the indication that you've given too much. It's where you have, when a child expects something, let me read this right here, is what I was thinking, is when a child reads something, it's because they've been conditioned. Right? And it's when you've given too much. And that's when you say, oh, well, listen, if that bothers you, it's an indication that I've given too much. It's about being open with a kid, not necessarily punishing a kid, but it's about being open and saying, hey, look, what you're feeling right now is an indication that you feel like you deserve it.
Yeah.
And we don't deserve anything.
Yeah.
We should just be grateful for everything that happens to our lives, in our lives. And man, if you can kind of, it's a pendulum that you're constantly... Pendulum? Is that the word I'm looking for?
You were talking about balance earlier.
Well, it's trying to maintain that balance. It's good to give, but it's better to give opportunity, because my God, if you ask, when your kid gets 12, you say, tell me everything you remember, every possession you have ever remembered, they'll only remember the things they've earned. Yeah. They will overlook the things that was given to them because they have such a low appreciation for them.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating thing.
Well,
I've had the whole spectrum from 23 years old now to 12, so I've experimented differently on all of them.
Yeah. I remember in a couple of podcasts ago, Dakota was speaking about just the joy of earning.
Don't you know what it is? You know what I'm talking. Everyone here has felt the sensation of earning.
Yeah.
Now we also
when
want
I was
the
younger.
Well, I know, but
that's a different story.
Yeah. But if you really, really analyze it, what I'm talking about, first principles, if you really analyze it, do some critical thinking, you will see the value, that there's very little value in something being given. I think we give to people because we want to feel loved. We give to our children because we wanted them to have more than we had, right? And it's not good.
Well, also, when I think of giving, I have a giver spirit. I love to volunteer. And
time. That's what you give, because time's the most valuable thing
which
ever.
Everybody has their own avenues on how and where they give, but I like to volunteer my time. I volunteer my time for a nonprofit here in town in Murfreesboro called Doors of Hope. Just a little bit of background for them. They give a safe place of tools, resources, and support for women who are post-incarceration, post-rehab, and I believe ladies who are on the streets, basically. And so, you know, with all of us, we all have our servant heart. And whenever you are volunteering that time, or, you know, whatever that looks like for you, yes, it is for that person. And you think, okay, I'm going to make that person's day, you know, brighter somehow. But really, in the end, your heart just, it's like the Grinch.
Thank you for being
honest. It blows up 10 times.
That's being selfish. It's okay to be selfish because you want to feel good.
Yeah.
But it's important to be selfless.
Yeah.
You can be both. That's doing the same thing. That's what charity is. And if you can accept that you're doing it for selfish reasons as well as selfless reasons, that's being honest. And I think you're on the right track.
Yeah.
It's important. Those things are both important. To be loved.
Yeah, everybody wants to be loved and appreciated and seen. I mean, this podcast right here, you are allowing a platform for people, individuals to be seen, share their story, their experiences, because you guys, the listeners on the other side, y'all are going to connect with certain individuals, and you know, it may spark an idea, a thought, etc. And so just going back to that as well.
I think this podcast, I don't have anyone as famous as you normally. I'm sorry,
famous.
G. G's pretty damn famous. Let me tell you, he's a local freaking celebrity.
Whenever
Brad
you
Muse.
see
I had Brad
him,
Muse on. He is 100% a local celebrity.
Whenever you see G, you should say, "Oh, look, there's Carly's husband," instead of, "Hey, Garrett," or "Oh,
Carly's husband."
Yeah.
But that's you taking possession of your man. I was never going to refer to you as Garrett's wife. Mm-hmm. I thought that would be slightly
individuals.
Offensive. Yeah. So, you was just saying something though about I never imagined so many people wanting to come on here. That was never a thought.
Well, people enjoy talking about themselves.
I'm going to tell you, I got a buddy that that has a podcast, and he has in my opinion, it's pretty damn successful. I'm really proud of him. He really inspired me to want to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm inspired by a lot of people, but I actually, talked to him about it, and he had intentionally started his podcast to have family and friends on, and it was more difficult than he expected. So he ended up interviewing and having, matter of fact, he hated when I said you interview people, he's like, no, I don't. I have conversations, and I understand what he's saying now. You don't want to be an interview. It wants to be a conversation.
Yeah. This does. It feels like a conversation.
It has to be a conversation. And, but what I realized, I've got something different. Like this is different because it's random people that everyone can relate to. Somebody out there, over 7 billion people on the planet. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that will relate to your story. I have a hard time relating to celebrities, high profile individuals on these podcasts, on these shows. I don't really have anything in common with them. The wealth gap, the way they live their life is just so different from me. But you and I have way more in common with the average person. And I think that's maybe, I don't know, but I think potentially this may be unique in that way.
Well, I agree because just another story. So I lead bar classes, bar as in BARRE.
So I thought we went from helping
well, I'm going to tie this in.
To working at the bar.
I'm going to tie this in.
What's a bar class?
Not to be confused with BAR. So bar is a fitness class, and it's a combination of Pilates, yoga, strength training, orthopedic stretching. And we call it bar because you use a ballet bar for stability. And so, you are working in the contraction of the muscle. And it's developed by a woman, it's for women, and it's a great workout. But anyway,
how does that apply? That's self-improvement. What are we talking about?
So this is how I'm going to tie it in. So anyway, in the classes that I teach, there are so many women that come in our studio, and you speak to them, you hear about their stories, you hear about their struggles, you hear about their desires, their wants, their expectations for, their bodies or self-esteem. I mean, the list is endless. We're all the same. At the end of the day, I just feel like a lot of us are very similar because we all want to be loved. We all want to be seen. We all want to serve in some way. And then, you were talking about the famous people, the celebrities. Sorry, my mind.
The unrelatables.
Yeah. And it is hard to relate, but whenever you bring it down to more of a community, we're all very similar in that respect.
Yeah, there's very few things. There's let's see, what is a good way to say that? There's less that separates us than we think. I mean, like we are so closely. We all are affected by the same shit.
We
just have complex ways of describing it because we're always diagnosing symptoms. We just see things on the surface level, and things are never as simple as they seem. It's not black and white.
No, and
ever.
And especially, I feel like this is ever so present, especially in the year that we've had. It's not, there's a lot of gray areas.
Well, everything is a gray. Mm-hmm. I hate the saying now because so many times people have told me that I think outside the box, and I always responded with what box. And I really believe that with all my heart now. There is no box. There is no way.
Yeah.
There's infinite ways. There's no wrong way. There's no right way. There's any way. Just keep moving. Mm-hmm. Just keep focusing on you. Try to make your bed. Try to do the basics, the basic things, and try to be the best version of you. And I've learned to be much more empathetic. I used to be very judgmental. Mm-hmm. I took a personality test years ago, and I was an ENTJ, extroverted, intuitive thinking, judgmental, and it was very accurate. Do you know what that is, a personality test? Myers-Briggs? Surely you've taken that in college.
I've taken a personality test that determines if you're like a red personality, a blue, green,
I don't know about that one. So there's 16 personalities according to Myers-Briggs, and it's really accurate. But the problem is people take them alone, and people tend to answer questions. It's like 72 questions, and it's not a test that you should take alone. We have too much of an ego, and we're influenced by that ego. And so I notice people tend to answer the questions in the way they would like to be perceived rather than the way they are perceived.
Yes.
And the first time I took the test, I was something different. And then I took it with my wife, and no, that I was an ENTJ. I thought, oh yeah, you're right, because it's simple. If you know somebody for a month and they answer a question, and you'd be like, are you sure? We know less about ourselves than we do the people around us. Mm-hmm. We really do, because our ego kind of protects us from a lot of stuff. But
yeah,
I was saying that to say, ENTJ, I'm changing. As a kid, I was introverted, and I just, for whatever reason, through practice. Wanting to be more socially accepted, practicing social proof. That's what we're doing as people. We're working on social proof, ultimately, to be more accepted. And the older I get, the more I realize the introverted people are probably more confident than the extroverted people. I've realized extroverted people like myself sought attention. Mm-hmm. And introverted people a lot of times could care less. They seem insecure and timid, but not so much. Not all the time. They usually could care less what you think. So they don't go out into the world seeking attention. So I have I'm starting to understand I know nothing. This is what I've learned. I don't have a clue about anything. I feel like I'm just becoming a student to life. Mm-hmm. There's no more facts. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Maybe you're going through another evolution of your life.
Yes, I am. I wouldn't say transcending, because I don't want to be totally different. I like who I am, but I want to be more understanding. And I was never an empathetic person. It took me a lifetime to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. That's two basic fundamentals. And people arrogantly go through life thinking they know something, and they really have no clue. And that's part of growing older too,
Yeah.
But yeah, when I finally understood the difference between empathy and sympathy was powerful.
Yeah.
For me.
That's good.
And you know the difference, don't you? You're an empathetic person.
Yes.
Can you describe the difference?
Oh my goodness. Well, You know, empathy. I mean, there's so many different examples we could use.
I heard an analogy that applied to me. It made a lot of sense to me. Brene Brown. Brene Brown, I think her name is. She's The Power of Vulnerability. Yes. My sister turned me on to this. And I'll tell you what, the truth is that I don't think you can relate to empathy until you've been devastated. Until you know what it feels like. You can pretend to know how someone feels, but honestly, you're just pretending. It's like this. You can't relate to a serial killer or a child molester unless you are capable of those things. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Well,
like, I don't even try to pretend to think the way. I don't even try to pretend to assume this is how they feel. Yeah. I have no fucking clue because I can't relate to them. So when it comes to empathy, I couldn't relate to people that hurt. I would just say, listen, man, got to get yourself up and keep moving. And maybe I was right, but it didn't matter because until you know how they feel, you'll never be able to relate. And that's really empathy, I think.
Well, I think just experiences that we, experience throughout life. I know I just used that word twice, but.
Well, that's okay.
And then just, I hate to say this, but just growing. Like, we're all growing. We're all aging. My view of empathy and sympathy is a whole lot different than when I was at 21 years old. And so life experiences really just change us, and also being able to be vulnerable, share your story, which really makes the other person feel like they're not alone, and that they do have someone to go to bounce thoughts off, ideas, and ask those questions. Do you think I'm crazy for thinking this, or is this what y'all are going through?
I would wonder if I don't even. We were talking about being vulnerable. Like, that's almost like, I think there's a difference between vulnerable and kind of desperate for answers, right? Or vulnerable and transparent. Yeah. Right? Like, I need answers. And once you need something, you can be vulnerable. It's easy. It's when you're not needing the power of vulnerability then. So I was thinking about this. So we'll talk about Brene Brown's metaphor of sympathy versus empathy. Sympathy is this. You're walking along, there's a hole. Someone's in the hole and they're hurting. I was very sympathetic, but then I would walk by and say, damn, I feel bad for them. Good luck, dog. Keep your head up.
No.
And I'd keep moving. That's sympathy on some level. Empathy is seeing it, not saying a word, climbing down in the hole, and just understanding. And just being with the person, just kind of feeling what they feel. And man, that was kind of powerful for me.
Yeah.
But you were talking about, so people think they're being vulnerable a lot of times. And I think, so
I'm being transparent on this podcast.
Well, okay, so a buddy of mine hit me up one time, and it's a very arrogant thing to, I don't know about arrogance. So we were talking about suicide. Mm-hmm. He was like, well, what do we, somebody asked me one time, like, because it's something that happened not too long ago, and in our lives. And my buddy asked me, he's like, "What do we got to do to stop this from happening? Like, we didn't know this was going to happen." And I got to thinking about that a lot. I got to thinking that people that, okay, so I see what the trend is this: when someone's when you see that someone's not right, something's off. Mm-hmm. Right? We don't have a clue that it's going to go as far as suicide.
They have an expectation.
I don't know, but what we tend to do is say, "Hey, man, listen. If you got anything, bothering, just let me know. I'm all ears. Mm-hmm. I'm here to listen.
Right, here to listen.
I'm here to do the moral thing. I'm taking the moral high ground. I'm here to listen to your problems. I'm here expecting you to be vulnerable to me.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, what if we reverse that? What if when we seen someone in pain, because we sense it, it's an emotional response.
Definitely.
What if instead of asking them to air out their dirty laundry, what if we started using that opportunity to truly be vulnerable, talking about things that we don't really need to. We just started talking about the things that scared us the most. If that makes any sense at all, trying to be relatable. Yeah. And then kind of get that conversation started, talking about the things that are truly terrifying to talk about. And
Yeah.
maybe it would encourage them to
Right.
want to talk about
Open
what
up.
they've been feeling. You know, maybe we're doing
It's
it backwards.
scary.
Is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
It's scary to open up. I mean,
Jesus,
I just shared that earlier.
My buddies tell me I'm too transparent. Like I'm taking this whole thing literally. Like don't share, don't hide
Pipe down.
anything.
Pipe down over there.
Yeah. This has been a really interesting podcast, and I don't want to cut it off here, but I know
Yeah.
we're going on for a while. And we're just getting to know each other in this way. We've never had this kind of conversation before. I've known you for a few years now.
Well, I knew it was going to be an easy conversation because you are really easy to talk to. And I feel like you and your wife, Rebecca, y'all are very non-judgmental, very open, just really nice, cool, very cool people.
Well, I'm honored that you say that, which is why I was talking about ENTJ. If I had to take that test again, I don't know that I would be a J anymore.
Yeah.
I'm still extroverted, and still intuitive, which is extrovert, ENT, extroverted, intuitive thinking. I don't know what I am at the end now. I'm not so judgmental anymore. I don't have opinions like I used to. And the more I follow this path of trying to understand, the less I have an opinion, the less I know is true. Anyways, It's kind of fun, you know. It's anything's possible now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
Well,
I would love to go further into this.
if any of you listeners want to go further in this,
I want to go further into some more of your ideas. I mean, we barely scratched the surface on expectations. I got a whole article written on expectations. Sorry, I got interrupted there. Anyways, I had a whole...
well, y'all just let us know if we're on the right track with this.
You think so?
Yeah.
Think they'll let us know?
Yes.
I don't think people will.
Well, just
You got to get to a
comment.
certain point before people start ragging you. It's like you got to be popular, and then people start trying to tear that down.
But you post your new episodes on social media.
Every Wednesday.
So right there, people can add, hey.
I would love to hear an opinion.
So drop us a line in the comment section.
Can you do that on the podcast thing? Like on the listener side? Because I don't know much about it. I've just been uploading. It goes like 7-8 different places.
I believe you can, but for this one example, whenever you post it onto social media, you guys, listeners, y'all just drop a line underneath.
Okay.
And give us some feedback.
I've had so much fun. I've got to go hang out with your husband.
Yes,
You know he's
yes you do.
waiting on me, right?
And Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening. I've really enjoyed myself.
Bye. Same. Me too. Bye.